So we're here with professional runner Nate Jenkins. He gave us a lecture at the New England Prep Cross Country Camp, and
Lecture.
yeah, well, you're a teacher, so
Oh, right.
so teachers give
Okay.
lectures.
Perfect.
So Nate, tell us a little about your high school running experience. Maybe some of the times you ran in high school, your relationship with your coach, and then the same in college.
So in high school, I ran junior, senior high school, so I ran 7th grade through senior year. I had a really good freshman year, started to show that I thought I had run all year round through 8th grade, and so it came in my freshman year, I started running a little bit better. Excuse me, that Coke's getting to me. And then I ended up running maybe 10 minutes and 20 seconds for 2 miles, and then by my junior year, I'd run maybe 10-12. I hadn't improved much, and then I significantly got my mileage. I ended up running 9:47 for 2 miles, 4:32 for the mile. So times that at the time were decent. Nowadays would be further down the totem pole. I think people are training a little bit better. I was on a good team. We won a couple state titles. I really developed a true love of running. I really had a good relationship with my coach. I look at how I train now, and it's very different, and I wish I had done different things physically in high school. But the man he was a second father to me, and he taught me a love of the sport and taught me how to work and how to sacrifice for what I wanted, and really made me and shaped who I became. So all in all, I think it was a tremendously positive experience, even if necessarily the technical aspect of what we were doing wasn't what I would, in retrospect, look at ideally.
Mm-hmm. So then when you went to college, obviously a new coach, talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the problems with the American system. I mean, you just get settled in, and then you go to the next level, and you think your coach was the greatest coach who ever lived, and now you got to go to this other guy who's doing things differently. I mean, one of the things is there's a lot of different ways to do it. My first college coach was a guy, George Davis, who had a tremendous amount of experience, and I think did a tremendous job. I didn't do a good job of listening to him. I got myself hurt a lot, so I basically had a three and a half year cycle of just getting myself hurt. And then finally started to listen just as George was finishing up, and he sort of handed off the baton to a guy, Gary Gardner, who took over, who I still go to Gary for advice on a regular basis and bounce ideas off of him. Gary was actually, he was in my wedding party, but Gary came in, and it was a good combination because he was saying the same thing George had and helped settle me down more and help me kind of get healthy. But also, me and Gary just sort of understood each other a lot better. Me and George had more of an adversarial type relationship, and I think Gary and I were more friends. By the end, I had realized George was right and I was wrong, but it was still a lot easier to live with Gary.
Mm-hmm. So finishing up your college career, what kind of times were you running there?
So by my senior year in college, I'd been hurt a lot, so I'd only run 14:56 for 5K. I'd run maybe 8:40 for 3K, and I don't have a whole lot of speed, so I think I'd run maybe 4:24 in the mile. But I had a year, I still had a lot of eligibility. I went to grad school. I was hoping to be able to compete for 2 years, but we ended up not even filing for an extension. We didn't think we'd get it, so I did this the 5th year. And during my 5th year, I ran 14:35 5K. I ran a 30:55 cross-country 10K. I didn't end up running a 10K on the track. And then I ran 8:21 or 8:20 for 3K and 4:17 in the mile. So a significant step forward for me and a good bit of improvement from where I had been in high school. You know, to go from running 9:47, 9:48 for 2 miles to running now 4:40 pace or sub 4:40 pace for 3 miles. It was a good improvement, but at the same time, you look at D1 regional qualifier for the 5,000, it's probably 14:10, 14:05, something like that, and there's 100 guys every year doing that.
Right.
So in terms of the real scope of things, that was pretty far down the totem pole.
Mm-hmm. So, you come out with these times, like you said, not times that are, predictive of your 7th place finish at the Olympic trials. So talk a little bit about, your goals and where you move forward from there.
I think I really was looking for, I had another year of grad school, so I might as well keep running. My schedule wasn't going to change, and I knew I was a better long-distance runner, and I really thought that even though I'd maybe only run 14:35 5K, certainly a 2:22 marathon, which was the B qualifier at the time for the trials, was a doable thing. So that's what I focused on. Burping all over the place here. So I just sort of was training to get into better shape and transition towards the marathon. And I also had this thing, I really wanted to try out Arthur Lydiard training and experiment with that. And I didn't do a good job of executing Lydiard. To be honest, I still think that you could become world-class following it, but you have to do all the cycles. And I kept hurting my T-band doing the downhill sprinting in the hill phase. I should have just cut out that. But I would miss a week or two. I would lose all my confidence. I would go right back and start the base phase over again. So flash forward now, it's 18 months later. And I haven't done any real workouts. I've just done the base phase with the tempo runs and some strides, and I've averaged 140, 160 miles a week for 18 months. My 10K PR is maybe 15 seconds faster than it was before. My 5K PR is unchanged. My 3K PR is unchanged. My mile PR is unchanged. I've run a half marathon, but I haven't tried a marathon yet. And when I had finished up grad school, I had kind of thought, oh, maybe I'll go get a real job. But I had a couple of part-time jobs at the time, and I decided, you know what? I'm only young once. I'm going to try to get this 222, and I'll try to just keep my part-time jobs, live cheap, and see where it gets me. I got to the point where I was pretty frustrated. I felt like I wasn't improving, and I was just going to kind of go get a job sort of deal. And Gary actually said, you know what? You're in the middle of the school year. You're supposed to be a teacher. You're not going to get a job right now anyway. Let's focus on a winter or spring marathon. Go out and see what you can do. And so we found a marathon. I knew Lydiard's guys, though he had Olympic medalists in the marathon, had underperformed comparatively in terms of times and basic fitness in the marathon as to his 5K. So I knew I needed to find a different system to follow. And I ended up going with the Renato Canova stuff, sort of because it was more modern and he seemed to have more consistent success, and it was I had some resources to look into it. And doing that type of quality-specific work and long aerobic quality and some short explosive stuff for modulation, even though I wasn't able to follow the schedule completely, I simply wasn't fit enough and I hadn't done the prerequisites in my build-up, I saw a massive improvement in my fitness. And I went from running, I had basically run 30-45, I think I run 24-30 for 8K, and a 107-30 half marathon. And in a 6-week period, or 8 weeks period, basically, I ran a 103.44 half marathon. And then I debuted in the marathon 2:15.28, which is basically running my half PR back-to-back. And then once I recovered from that, I ended up running an 8K in about 23:20s. So just a huge, huge leap forward. And that got me qualified for the trials. It got me a small shoe deal. And at that point, I got pretty serious. About 6 months before the trials, I'd meant to get into another marathon. I got mono. Things got, a little bit broken down. And then I got a Rhodes Scholar Award and quit my job to focus 100% on running. Again, because I was still living cheap. But now the Rhodes Scholar money sort of replaced the money I was making part-time, and it balanced things out. And yeah, so then I just started kind of tagging towards the trials at that point.
So I know you've said before, one of your proudest moments is representing the USA at the World Championships. Talk a little bit about that experience being there, with the world's best.
I think it's an amazing thing. It's a neat experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Just being in the athlete's hotel and seeing what these people look like in person. The distance runners are the only average-looking people in the room. You've never seen so many 6'3" women in your life, and just men who can fill a doorway, and the athleticism just oozing out of people. But I think that it's an important thing because you sort of figure out, like, if I've made it here, I need to stop whining about not having any talent and realize I had enough talent to get here. I've got nothing else to complain about. Especially the one thing I really noticed that seemed to be a defining characteristic is the average athlete there looked like the greatest athlete you'd ever seen. So if you had 10 women multi-eventers, they all looked like Amazon goddesses who were built to be a decathlete or a pentathlete, heptathlete. They just were 6'4". They were athletic. They were powerful. They were muscular, and you've never seen a human being like that before in your life. And you knew if you saw one, you would say, "Oh, she's an Olympian." The girl who won was 5'9" and looked no more athletic than most of the multi-eventers who were on my college team in Division II. And I started to notice that was true of a lot of the events. The most spectacular person was not the best-looking one, was not the one who had seemingly the physical makeup. Once you get to that level, I honestly believe that to a large degree, talent has been taken out of the equation. You have overcome the difficulties of talent. and you've reached a point where your work has created the talent you need. And you still, I mean, in terms of if I was running 5,000, I would still be in trouble because I don't have the basic speed to run the last lap that they're running. Although I think part of that has been not doing what I was supposed to do in training at an earlier stage to get some of that speed. I think that looking at Galen Rupp's kick the other day at the Olympics, I think a lot of that was worked and developed. But in terms of just the whole experience, the opportunity to represent the U.S., the opportunity to rub shoulders with those people, it was amazing. There were little things. I got to eat dinner a couple nights with Amy Acuff, who's now, I think, on her 6th Olympic team. And this is someone like I watched on TV when I was watching my first Olympics on TV in '96 at 15 years old. And now I'm sitting there eating dinner with her just because we're in the dining hall, And I was I got to do some runs with Dan Brown, who was a guy who I had looked up to, who had made a couple of Olympic teams, and seeing that and just being like, oh my God, I'm here. I belong. And I think that coming from Division II, coming from not being a high school superstar, I always sort of had a sense of I was fooling people. I was this like fluke of the system that I had a small shoe contract or that I got to run these professional races, and all of a sudden it was like, at the World Championships, you might have to admit that you've made it. Now, unfortunately, I had some injury problems long before then and stuff that was, I don't know, eroding things. And I didn't perform well there, and I sort of only had my short little window of really performing solidly. Which, again, I mean, in retrospect, I think was preventable, and hopefully is fixable.
Well, Nate, thank you so much for coming today. And
hey, thank you. Thanks for having me. I had a good time. Thanks for the wiffle ball.
Yeah. Well, definitely an inspiration to all of us, and hopefully we'll see you again next year.
Yeah, probably.